My name is Maisie Vandermeer, 31 years old. At my brother's engagement party, my father raised my own BMW keys above his head in front of 80 guests and announced loudly, "This is our gift to the real bride." His future daughter-in-law laughed in my face and said, "You can Uber to your checkups, fatty. No one wants a pregnant whale ruining the photos anyway." When I reached for my keys, my father shoved me hard. I crashed into the table, sharp pain shooting through my belly at 33 weeks pregnant. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply picked up my phone and called my husband. They thought humiliating a pregnant woman in public was just family business. They had no idea the woman they just assaulted runs the Special Investigations Unit for the country's largest insurer, and that their names were already on my desk. Drop a comment and tell me, has your own family ever humiliated you in public? If family betrayal, pregnant mother injustice, and cold professional revenge are your thing, you're in the right place. Subscribe for the full story. People hear insurance investigator and they picture spreadsheets. They picture someone phoning hospitals to ask which knee got hurt. They are not wrong about the spreadsheets. They are wrong about who keeps them. I was born in Phoenix in the summer of 1994. My father was a personal injury attorney with 2 Mercedes and a wall full of framed photographs of himself standing next to people who were, at one point, important in Arizona. My mother ran the household the way certain women ran households in this state in those years, by deciding who was allowed in which room and who was not. My brother Tanner came 2 years after me. From the day he could walk, the rule of the house was simple. Tanner was the warm one. I was the one with the grades. I left journalism school at 22. The story that changed my mind was an insurance scam that emptied the home equity of a family I had grown up across the street from. The mother of my closest childhood friend lost her house at 53 because a chiropractor and a fake claimant had stripped her policy through a year of staged accidents she had nothing to do with. I walked into the offices of what would become Meridian Mutual 3 weeks later and asked them if they hired people who did not blink. They did. 9 years later, I sat at the head of the Special Investigations Unit at the largest insurer in the country. We have 11 full-time investigators, 3 retired federal agents on contract, and a wall of whiteboards that change every quarter. My boss, Hadley Conroe, brought me up to director at the start of 2023. She told me once that I had eyes that did not blink, and that was why she had promoted me. People think insurance fraud is about money. It is about families pretending they had injuries they did not have, until the family pretending stops being someone else's. My whole life, my job had been teaching me one skill: how to wait until people told on themselves. I just did not know I would need it at home. I met Owen Beaumont in 2019 at a fraud conference in Las Vegas. He was on a panel about chain of custody for digital evidence. He told the room, in a low voice that did not chase attention, that he built systems for people who did not get believed. I sat in the second row and decided I would marry him before he finished his presentation. We married in June of 2022 at the Maricopa County Courthouse in Phoenix. The witnesses were 2 members of Owen's security team. Afterward, we ate pizza at Pizzeria Bianco and walked back to our hotel. My father was being investigated by the state bar that month. My mother said she could not bear the stress of 2 events. I never asked them about the wedding again. Owen runs Beaumont Protective Group. We service high-net-worth families across the Southwest. We do residential, executive, evidence preservation, and we hold the long-running security and maintenance contract on the country club my parents pretended I still cared about. Owen has access to every camera on that property. He has had it since 2019. In March of 2024, after I broke up a fraud ring out of Goodyear, a man followed me through the Meridian Mutual parking lot at 7 o'clock in the evening. He did not say anything. He simply walked behind me at the speed of my heels. I was wearing flats. He matched anyway. Owen installed the cameras on my BMW that night. 4 lenses. front, rear, cabin, and one above the passenger door. He set the cloud backup to push every 6 seconds. When I bought my new X7 in February of 2025, with my SIU bonus and the 9 years of savings I had been quietly building, he transferred the package over and engraved my initials, MV, into the master and the spare key fob. He looked at me when he handed them back and said, "4 cameras. Cloud backup runs every 6 seconds. Nobody touches that car without me knowing." Owen installed those cameras 2 years ago. We thought we were done worrying about other people's lies. If you have ever been treated like the family resource instead of family, hit like and stay with me. The next part is where my father stops being a person I can defend. There is a photograph in the living room of my parents' house in Paradise Valley. My father is standing next to the governor of Arizona, sometime in 2018. He is wearing a navy suit that fits him better than any suit he has ever owned. He is laughing. He is the kind of laughing a man does when he believes the photograph is permanent. The photograph is still in the living room. The membership behind it is not. In March of 2022, the State Bar of Arizona disbarred my father. The disciplinary order cited a pattern of billing irregularities going back at least 4 years. He had invoiced clients who had died before the work was done. He had submitted continuing legal education credit numbers for sessions he had never attended. He had taken settlement disbursements through an escrow he was no longer legally authorized to operate. The order was 22 pages. My mother told relatives at Easter that my father had felt it was time and wanted to spend more time with family. 1 month later, the Camelback Country Club board sent my parents a polite letter informing them that their membership had been suspended pending review. The review never produced a reinstatement. By the summer of 2022, my father had not been on the property in 3 months. By the fall, the suspension had quietly converted to a revocation. My mother kept the news to a circle so small you could fit it in a powder room. My father had lost a license and a club. He had not lost the habit of telling people who they were. The thing about a disbarment in Arizona is that it does not stay private. The State Bar publishes the order. The Phoenix Business Journal prints the order. The local legal community reads the order over coffee for about a week, and then the order is filed in a place where every attorney in the state can find it forever. My mother spent the first 6 months of 2022 explaining to anyone who would listen that the publication was a procedural formality. It was not. It was a final verdict. By the end of that summer, my father had stopped going to the grocery store he had been shopping at for 20 years because the woman who managed the deli counter had read the order and had started avoiding his eyes. After the disbarment, my parents needed a story. A family in Paradise Valley cannot be a family in shame, so they rewrote me. I became the cold one, the career one, the daughter who chose a courthouse wedding over a real one, the daughter who didn't even invite her parents because she knew they had other obligations. That sentence was repeated to me, in the same tone, by 3 different cousins over 3 different Thanksgivings. The first time I corrected the record. The second time I let it go. The third time I understood that I was not the audience for the correction. My mother once said it to me directly, over Thanksgiving in 2024, while she was stirring gravy. "Tanner is the warm one, sweetheart. You always had your work." She said it the way a person closes a door. Tanner met Sloan Pritchard at a real estate networking event in Scottsdale in November of 2024. Sloan was 25 then. She was a real estate agent with a profile picture that had been retouched. By Thanksgiving of 2025, she was sitting at my mother's right hand, eating my mother's stuffing, calling my father Daddy V in front of my grandmother. My mother had given her my great-grandmother's silver pin to wear that night. I had been told for 15 years that pin was being kept for me. Sloan had a particular way of moving through my parents' house that I should have noticed earlier. She did not ask where the bathroom was. She did not ask which towels were for guests. She walked into my mother's kitchen at Thanksgiving and pulled the gravy boat down from the third shelf of the third cabinet on the left without hesitating. A person who has been welcomed into a home does not move through that home like she has memorized the floor plan. A person who has been studying a target does. I noticed it. I did not say anything. I told myself I was being paranoid because of the work I did. I was not being paranoid. At dessert, Sloane stood up, kissed my father on the cheek, and said, "Mr. Vandermeer, I have always wanted a father like you." My father did not look at me. My mother did, and her eyes were proud. By the time Tanner proposed to Sloane in March of 2026, my parents had spent 3 years rewriting me out of their story. They needed a real bride. They thought one had finally arrived. I had not yet understood that Sloane was not the prize my parents had picked. Sloane was the prize that had picked them. In the second week of November of 2025, my junior analyst, Kerrigan, stopped at my office door with 4 claim files in her hand. She had the particular small look on her face that I had taught my team to recognize. It was the look of a pattern just before it stops being a coincidence. She put the files on my desk. 4 claims. 4 soft tissue injuries. 4 neck pains and 4 lumbar strains. 4 reported automobile accidents in Greater Phoenix between September and early November. 4 different policy holders. 4 different addresses. 1 chiropractor. 1 imaging clinic. 1 billing pattern that matched, line by line, across files that should not have shared a single comma. The bills were the kind of bills that lazy fraud rings used to file in the 1990s. Identical CPT codes in identical sequences. Cervical X-ray, lumbar X-ray, full spine adjustment, supportive bracing, follow-up visits at intervals so precise you could set a watch by them. The treatment narratives read like they had been written by the same person from the same template. The signature blocks at the bottom of each form bore the same name in the same handwriting. "Director," Kerrigan said. "Either he is the best chiropractor in the state, or these people know each other." I told her to put a flag on the provider. I told her to pull 18 months of billing history out of the same clinic. I did not tell her why my mouth went dry. The chiropractor's name was Dr. Theodore Ridgway. The clinic was Camelview Medical, on East Indian School Road. By Friday afternoon, Kerrigan had 14 claims on the board. 14 accidents, 14 identical injury patterns, 14 identical billing structures, 1 provider, 2 billing addresses inside the same 6-mile radius. I have run a special investigations unit long enough to know what a fraud ring looks like before it has a face. The first thing it does is share doctors. The second thing it does is share property layouts. The third thing it does is start sharing witnesses. I did not run participant tracing in November. SIU protocol is provider first. You audit the doctor, the clinic, the imaging center, the billing entity. You build that case until it is airtight. Then, only then, do you start running drivers and witnesses through state databases. You do not work backward. Working backward gives defense attorneys discovery angles you do not want them to have. Kerrigan understood the protocol. She had been on my team for 2 years. She started where I told her to start. She pulled Camelview Medical's billing records from January 2024 forward. She pulled Dr. Ridgway's CME credits, his malpractice carrier, his Medicare provider identifiers. She built a timeline of his treatment dates against his publicly available calendar, the conferences he had spoken at, the continuing education classes he had hosted, the Facebook photographs his wife had posted of him in Cabo over Memorial Day weekend. The treatment dates included 3 Saturdays. Dr. Ridgway had been demonstrably not in Arizona. We had him on falsified treatment records before we had any of his patients. By April of 2026, the provider audit was 80% complete. We had the medical bills. We had the imaging orders that did not match the injury claims. We had a pattern of treatment dates, that overlapped with calendar weekends. Dr. Ridgway was provably out of state. We did not yet have the drivers. We did not yet have the witnesses. We did not yet have the face. I had been ready, all of 2024, for someone to come at me from the outside. That is what fraud rings do. They send a man across a parking lot. They make a call to your husband's office. They send flowers to your hospital room after a routine ultrasound to remind you they know which one was yours. I had not been ready for the chiropractor's name to walk into Thanksgiving dinner. On Friday, May 8th, 2026, the day before my brother's engagement party, I locked the file in my drawer. I left a sticky note on the front for Hadley, the way I always did at the close of an investigation week. It said, "Provider audit clear by month end. Witness list to follow in June." I put the key for the drawer in my purse. I drove home to Paradise Valley. We had the chiropractor. We had the clinic. We had the medical bills. We did not yet have the drivers, the witnesses, or the face. The invitation came in the third week of April. Heavy cream stock, gold leaf calligraphy, the embossed crest of Camelback Country Club at the top. I held it in my hand for longer than the envelope deserved, because the crest at the top did not match the 4 years of letters I knew my parents had received from the same address. I had been at my mother's house in late February, when one of those 4-year letters had still been sitting unopened on the kitchen counter. It had been thin and slightly yellow and addressed to my father. The return address had been the Camelback Country Club Membership Committee. My mother had folded it under a stack of catalogs when she had noticed me looking at it. She had said, lightly, "Oh, that's just paperwork. Don't worry about it." 3 months later, my parents' name was at the top of the engagement invitation. I called my mother. I asked her gently whether the club had reversed her revocation. "We pulled some strings, Maisie," she said. "The Vandermeers belong at Camelback again. Your cousin Helena's husband sits on the membership review committee. He pushed it through. Don't make it a thing." My mother had not pulled strings since 2022. The club had not let her. Something had changed. 2 days later, she called again. Her voice was light in the way it always was when she wanted something I would refuse if she asked it directly. "Wear the ivory dress, sweetheart." Sloane chose blush. "We don't want competition tonight." I held the phone away from my ear and looked at the ivory dress hanging in my closet. It was loose. It draped. It was the kind of dress a woman wore when she was being asked to disappear from her own family's photographs. "The blush belongs to her tonight," my mother said. My mother had never asked me to dress around someone else. I should have understood what that meant. Before I drove to Paradise Valley for the night of the engagement, I want to walk you back to November of 2025. Thanksgiving. My parents' house. A windstorm had rolled across the valley that evening, and the roads from Paradise Valley back to my house in North Scottsdale had been closed by the police for 3 hours. My mother had insisted I stay the night. I had been 10 weeks pregnant then and tired, and I had agreed. In the morning, my mother stood in the doorway of the guest room while I packed. She watched me look for my spare BMW key fob in my purse for almost a full minute. Then she said, in the soft voice she used for asking favors, "Sweetheart, just leave us the spare. For emergencies. The baby is coming. We need to be able to come get you." I should have said no. I had been raised by my mother. I knew what it looked like when she was building a reason out loud in real time. She did not need the spare key. My father was 63. He drove his own Mercedes. My mother had her own car. I had Owen, 10 minutes from anywhere I was likely to be. If there were ever a genuine emergency, no one was going to come get a pregnant woman by driving her own car back to her. The story made no sense the moment you held it up to light, but my mother had asked me for nothing in 3 years. She had skipped my courthouse wedding. She had skipped my baby shower invitation list discussions. She had skipped the first ultrasound I had told her about. And now she was asking me, with the small, soft voice of a mother who had finally decided I was worth a favor for a single spare key. I handed her the spare. I did not think about it again. She placed it in the drawer of the entryway table. I saw her do it, the fob with the MV engraved on it. I had given my mother the spare key out of love. She had handed it to my father out of something else. On the evening of Saturday, May 9th, 2026, Owen drove me from our house in Paradise Valley to the Camelback Country Club. The drive was 24 minutes. He told me he would be at the Beaumont office, 12 minutes away, until I called him. He kissed me on the porch and said, "Call me before the toast." I said I would. I did not know what the toast was. The valet captain handed me a ticket and held the door open with the careful neutrality of a man who had been told by management that the Vandermeers were a sensitive name to handle. Inside the lobby, my mother was waiting. She hugged me too tightly, in the way she hugged for an audience. My father did not hug me. He did not hug me. He simply looked at me, smiled, and said, "It's good to have you home again, Maisie." He had not said the word home to me since 2022. He picked tonight to say it twice. The ballroom was the way Camelback ballrooms always are in May, which is to say cool and intentional and arranged for photographs. 80 guests, white flowers, champagne flutes that had been polished by a man who had been polishing flutes at that club since I was a child. Tanner stood near the bar in a charcoal suit that fit him too well to be his. Sloane was in blush, in the corner, in front of a small ring of relatives, showing off the engagement ring like a magician displaying a coin. She wore my great-grandmother's silver pin again. My mother walked me over to introduce me as if Sloane and I had never met. Sloane kissed the air on either side of my cheek and let her eyes glance down at my belly. "Oh, Maisie," she said. "You always look so formal." I watched her reach back up to touch the pin on her shoulder as she said it, the way a woman touches the necklace she has just been complimented on, to make sure the room has registered it. It was a small gesture. It was deliberate. Sloane wanted me to know she knew what the pin was. She wanted me to know my mother had told her the history. She wanted me to know the history had been given to her. She wore my great-grandmother's pin like she had earned it. Tanner was holding court near the bar with 3 older cousins. He was on his 3rd champagne. He was explaining a Sedona flip he had just closed, a 6-bedroom property he had bought, renovated, and resold for an expected profit of $480,000. He gestured at me as a punctuation. "Sedona is hot right now. Right, sis? You know how it is." I had pulled my brother's tax filings the year before, after my mother kept asking me whether I could help with a small loan to keep Tanner's projects going. Sedona was not hot for him. Nothing was. I drifted toward the patio. My cousin Helena caught my elbow on the way past the chocolate fountain. Helena is 27, the kind of woman who has never lied for a living and has never been asked to. She squeezed my arm and said, with the bright, unguarded innocence that made me love her, "Hey, did your folks help you with the BMW? Your dad mentioned the family pitched in." The bottom of the glass I was holding stopped feeling cold. I looked at her. I kept my voice level. "Helena, I paid cash for that car in February. The family contributed nothing." She blinked. "Oh, sorry. Pretty car, though." She drifted away with her champagne. She did not understand what she had just told me. My father had been telling cousins, neighbors, and country club members that the family had paid for my car. I had paid for it in February, by myself. At 7:48, I walked down the hallway behind the kitchen toward the powder room. I did not see them until I was almost past them. My father, Sloane, and a 3rd man, gray-haired, holding a beer bottle by the neck. They were standing in the alcove next to the staff entrance. They were speaking very quietly. The 3rd man stopped speaking when he saw me. He turned his head away in the practiced way. Certain men turn their heads away from cameras. The hallway was dim. The lights in the alcove were the soft amber sconces that staff turned down during plated dinners. The kitchen door behind the three of them swung outward on its hinges every few seconds as a server passed. The angle made it impossible to see the gray-haired man's face for more than half a second. I heard my father's voice carry 3 words, muffled, before he stopped. Ridge. Clinic confirmed. We're clear before Monday. I did not stop walking. I lifted my phone out of my clutch, framed the 3 of them in the hallway, and pressed the shutter. I did not pause. I did not slow down. I tagged the photograph for the family album, because that is what a woman walking to a powder room does at a party. I held the phone naturally. I did not look at the screen. I did not check whether the photograph had focused. I simply kept walking. I took out my phone and photographed the 3 of them in the hallway. I did not know yet what I had just captured. At 9 o'clock, the DJ lowered the music. My father tapped his champagne glass with the side of a butter knife. 80 heads turned toward him. My mother stood at his right shoulder. Sloane stood beside Tanner near the head of the room. I was at the back of the ballroom with one hand resting on my belly. The baby kicked once. The baby felt fine. If I could have everyone's attention, my father said. The Vandermeers have something to give tonight. He had practiced this. I could hear it in the pauses. My father had given speeches at fundraisers and bar association events, and the closing arguments of 3 murder trials. He knew where to put a pause for emphasis. He knew where to drop his voice. He knew when to wait for the room to lean in. He had clearly written this toast with the same craftsman's attention. He reached into the inner pocket of his vest. He brought out a key fob and lifted it above his head. The room saw it before I did. They saw the BMW emblem. They saw the chrome. They saw the polite suspense of a wealthy father presenting a wealthy gift. I saw something else. I saw the small engraved letters on the side of the fob. MV. The engraving Owen had done in February. The engraving that confirmed that the fob in my father's hand was mine. This is our gift, my father said, his voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. To the real bride. The fob in his hand was mine. He had been carrying it in his vest the whole evening. Sloane laughed. She walked the 4 steps from Tanner toward my father with the unhurried smile of a woman who had been told what would happen and what her line would be. She took the keys. She turned toward me with the keys in her hand. She tilted her head. She winked, and in front of 80 witnesses, in a voice clear enough for the back of the room, she said, "You can Uber to your checkups, fatty. No one wants a pregnant whale ruining the photos anyway." The room laughed. Some of the laughter was the small, uncomfortable laughter of people who had not understood what was happening. Some of it was real. My mother's laughter was real. Tanner clapped Sloane on the shoulder. A first cousin of mine near the back of the room laughed too loudly and then looked at the woman next to her with the wide-eyed expression of a person who has just realized she is on the wrong side of a story. I had used a particular voice with witnesses for 9 years. It was low. It was unhurried. It was the voice I used when I wanted a person to understand that I was not asking the second time. I stepped forward 2 steps. I said, "Dad, those are my keys. Give them back." He waved his hand at me like he was waving smoke. "Don't be dramatic, Maisie. Sit down." I reached for the keys. He shoved me. He used the flat of his hand against the front of my shoulder, and he put weight behind it, and the dinner table behind me caught the small of my back along its hard, polished edge. A water glass tipped. A bread plate slid. A sharp pain shot from my lower back across the front of my belly, low and bright. He turned to the room and lifted his hand the way a man dismisses a complaint at a deposition. "She tripped," he said. "Everyone, please, she tripped." He shoved a woman 8 months pregnant in front of 80 witnesses and tried to tell them I had tripped. I sat down on the nearest chair. I put my hand on the bottom of my belly. The baby moved. I counted breaths. I did not cry. The pain was a real pain. It was not the soft echo of a bumped hip. It was a low, sharp pull across the front of my abdomen that traveled around my side and settled in my lower back where the table edge had caught me. I knew enough about preterm labor signs to know that a sharp, sudden, focal pain at 33 weeks after a fall or impact was a clinical event that required monitoring. I knew enough about my own body to know that the pain was not contractions yet, but that I had a window of perhaps 30 minutes to get on a fetal monitor before any complication could be ruled out. I counted my breaths, because I knew, somewhere in the part of my brain that had been trained for 9 years in a different kind of crisis, that staying calm in the next 90 seconds was the only thing that would keep me from making a decision I would regret. A great aunt across the room was already moving toward me. My mother got there first. My mother put her hand on my shoulder, too firm, and leaned in too close to my ear. "Sweetheart," she said, "don't make this bigger than it is." I stopped calling her mom inside my head that minute. I have not started again. I lifted my phone out of my clutch with the hand that was not on my belly. I pressed Owen's name. He picked up on the first ring. I said 3 words. Camelback. Pushed. Bleeding. He said 1 word back. Moving. The line went dead. I stood up. I walked across the ballroom. No one stopped me. By the time I reached the parking lot, his Suburban was coming up the drive. Owen walked into the lobby of Camelback Country Club at 9:16, with 2 of his men in black Beaumont protective uniforms behind him. He did not look at my father. He did not look at my mother. He bent down toward me, put his hand on my shoulder, and said, very quietly, "Are you okay to walk?" I nodded. I stood. He took my elbow. We were halfway to the door when Tanner called after me, with the particular forced lightness that drunk men use when they have just understood that the room has stopped being on their side. "Lighten up, sis. It's just a car." My husband did not look at my brother. He did not need to. We were at Honor Health Scottsdale Shea Medical Center by 9:52. They put a white plastic bracelet on my wrist that read, "Vandermeer Beaumont, Maisie." They put a fetal monitor on my belly. The strip of paper printed for a full minute. The baby's heart rate held steady at 152 beats per minute, no contractions. A bruise was already forming low across my lumbar spine. The triage doctor was a man named Halverson. He was in his 50s, calm, methodical. He read my chart. He examined the bruise on my back. He checked the dilation. He asked, in the careful neutral tone that obstetricians use when they have a chart in front of them, what had happened. I told him. He looked at me for a moment longer than the question required. He wrote it on the chart. He told me, in a steady voice, that I was going to spend the next 12 hours on continuous fetal monitoring. He told me the baby was fine. He told me the placenta looked intact on the bedside ultrasound. He told me that he was admitting me for observation, not because he was worried, but because he did not want me to spend the night worrying about something he could rule out with a monitor. He told me he was very sorry that this was the reason I was in his emergency room. The obstetrics nurse, a woman whose name tag said simply Rosalind, told me, "Baby's strong. Heart rate is 152. You did the right thing coming in." I held the strip of paper in my hand. I had not cried in the ballroom. I had not cried in the car. I had not cried in triage. I cried over the strip of paper. The monitor printed for a full minute, and I held it in my hand and finally cried. A second nurse photographed the bruise on my back for the chart. She sat down on the edge of the bed when she was finished and looked at me with the steady professional kindness of a woman who had done this hundreds of times. "Who did this to you?" she asked. "My father," I said. She wrote it on the chart. She put a small yellow card down on the pillow next to my head. It had a phone number on it. National Domestic Violence Hotline. She did not say anything about it. She did not look at me when she did it. She simply set it down where I would see it. I had taken hundreds of statements like that in my career. I had never given one. At 1:15 in the morning, Owen's phone rang. He put it on speaker. My mother's voice came out of it. "Owen, this is Marlene. Don't make this bigger than it is. Maisie is hormonal. She tripped on her own dress. The whole family saw it. We can talk in the morning when everyone has had some sleep." Owen ended the call without speaking. He turned to his second-in-command, a man named Dorsey who had been with him since 2020. "Tomorrow morning, 7 sharp," Owen said. "Pull every camera in that building. Lobby, ballroom, hallway, parking lot. Pull the dash cam cloud on the BMW preservation order under the incident clause of our service contract. We hold it under chain of custody and we turn it over to the Attorney General when it is subpoenaed." Dorsey nodded once and stepped out into the hallway. Owen sat down on the edge of the hospital bed beside me. He took my hand. He did not say anything for a long time. He simply held my hand and watched the fetal monitor print its slow, steady line of black ink onto the white paper. Eventually, he said, "I want you to know something. I am not going to fix this by going to that house and saying something to your father. That would feel good for 15 minutes, and then it would compromise everything else I am about to do. I am going to fix this by giving the cameras to the people who are paid to take this kind of evidence and use it correctly. Are we agreed?" I nodded. I did not trust my voice. "And one more thing," he said. "Whatever happens next, the baby comes first. Every decision we make for the next 9 weeks goes through that filter. The case will get itself filed. The baby is the only thing we cannot afford to lose." Owen looked at me. He looked at the door. He said, very softly, "They have no idea what they just did." I did not know yet either. But by morning I would. We were inside the Beaumont Protective Security Operations Center by 8:30 on Sunday morning. The hospital had discharged me at 6, with instructions to rest, to monitor for contractions, and to come back immediately if anything changed. I had not gone home. I had gone with Owen to his Scottsdale office. I had walked into the second-floor SOC the way I had walked into 100 SOC rooms in my career. This time, I was not the investigator. I was the case file. 4 monitors, 3 technicians. Owen standing in the back of the room with his arms crossed. "Start with the toast," Owen told the lead tech, a woman named Devereaux. "Then walk it backward." She walked it backward. The first clip was the ballroom from the southeast corner. Wide angle. Time code 9:02 p.m. My father raised the keys. Sloane laughed. Sloane took the keys. Sloane turned. The audio caught her line clean. "You can Uber to your checkups, fatty." The room laughed. I stepped forward. My father waved. I reached. He shoved. Devereaux paused the clip. She zoomed in. The second angle, taken from the east side ceiling camera, caught my father's hand flat against the front of my shoulder, his weight forward, his elbow locked. There was no ambiguity in the contact. "Freeze," Owen said. "There," his hand on her sternum. "That is Class 4 felony in this state." Devereaux zoomed on the key fob in my father's other hand. The chrome caught the chandelier light. The engraving was crisp. MV. That clip alone was enough. We did not stop there. Devereaux rolled the camera back to 5:30 in the afternoon, 3 hours before the guests arrived. The angle was the parking lot, from the East Valet stand. My father walked out of the lobby alone. He crossed the lot. He stopped at my BMW. He pulled a key fob out of his vest pocket. He pressed the unlock button. The lights blinked. He got into the driver's seat. He sat there. He sat there for 52 seconds. Then he got out, locked the car, and walked back into the lobby. The dashcam cabin angle on my BMW caught his face in daylight. He was not nervous. He was not panicked. He was checking something. He was confirming that the spare key still worked. "Look at this," Devereaux said. He sat in the driver's seat for 52 seconds at 5:30 p.m. He had the spare key the whole evening. My father had not been improvising. My father had been rehearsing. Devereaux moved to the hallway camera. 7:48 p.m. My father, Sloane, and the gray-haired man with the beer bottle. The audio was muffled at first. Devereaux ran an enhancement pass. She filtered the dishware noise from the kitchen behind them. She brought the human voices into the foreground. The audio came back clean. My father in the hallway said, "Ridgway said the clinic confirmed the claim. We're clear before Monday." The room around me went quiet. I had said the name Ridgway in 3 meetings that month. I had said it across the conference table to Kerrigan. I had said it twice to Hadley. I had never heard my father say it. I just had not heard my father say it before. Devereaux ran a facial recognition pass on the gray-haired man. The match came back in 11 seconds. "Director?" she said, looking at me carefully. "That is Dr. Theodore Ridgway, Phoenix, Camelview Medical Clinic." I sat down. Owen put a glass of water in my hand. I did not drink it. "I know who he is," I said. My father knew Ridgway. My brother's fiancé knew Ridgway. I was the only one in this family who had been trying to find him. I opened my laptop on the SOC table. I logged into the Meridian Mutual VPN. I pulled the participant tracing layer I had been planning to wait until June to run. I pulled the witness depositions on the 14 flagged claims. I searched the witness names. S. Pritchard appeared in 4 of them. I pulled the Arizona DMV database. I matched the address on the policy paperwork to a driver's license. The license belonged to Sloane Pritchard, date of birth, November 1999, Scottsdale, Arizona. The photograph was the woman who had laughed in my face the night before. Sloane had been a witness of record in 4 staged accidents in the last 18 months. Sloane was not new to my family. She was new only to me. I sat back. I looked at the picture of her on the Arizona license. I looked at the screen capture of her engagement ring that she had posted to Instagram 6 weeks earlier. My brother had not picked her. The ring had picked him. I picked up a clean sheet of paper from Owen's printer. I drew 4 circles. I labeled them: Ridgway, Camelview Medical, Tanner, Sloane. I drew a 5th circle in the middle and labeled it Gerald. I drew lines between them. The ring I had been hunting for 6 months had been sitting at my brother's engagement party. I had been hosting it inside my own family. By 7 in the morning on Monday, May 11th, I was on the phone with my boss. Hadley Conroe is 61 years old. She has worked in insurance fraud since the year I was born. She did not need me to walk her through what I had found in the SOC the day before. She needed me to walk her through what I was going to do. The call lasted 8 minutes. I did not cry. I told her, in the voice I had used at the head of 100 SIU briefings, that I needed to recuse from the Ridgway file, that the ring we had been auditing for 6 months was the family I shared a last name with, that I wanted the file out of my hands by noon, but I wanted it in the right hands. "Maisie," Hadley said, "you have handed me cleaner files. I will hand this one to people who do not sleep until it is filed." I drove to the office. I unlocked my desk drawer. I took the manila folder marked with the case number out of the drawer. I walked it down to Hadley's office. I put my office key on top of it. I gave Hadley the file and walked out. I never had to walk it back in. At noon, Owen called a man named Beckett Crawford. Crawford is a special agent with the Arizona Attorney General's Insurance Fraud Bureau. He and Owen had worked together on a 2021 case involving a fake roofing claim ring in Tucson. Crawford answered on the second ring. We met him at his office at 1:30 in the afternoon. Crawford is in his early 40s. He listens with his whole face. I gave him the file. He read it for 10 minutes without speaking. When he looked up, he said, "We have had eyes on this ring for 18 months. I am sorry it was your family." He pulled an 18-month case binder out of a credenza behind his desk and put it on the table next to mine. 2 files, the same case, from opposite directions. They had been looking for the missing piece. I had been the missing piece, but not the way I thought. Crawford turned to a tab at the back of his binder. He pointed at a single claim form. Sloan Pritchard, he said. Claim filed from a hotel in Austin, Texas in August of 2025. Sworn witness statement transmitted across state lines via interstate wire. That is our federal anchor. 18 U.S. Code Section 1343. We file parallel. Arizona State on the assault and the fraud. Federal on the wire. My family had crossed a state line on paper. They had crossed every other line in person. Between Tuesday, May 12th and Friday, May 22nd, I did almost nothing. I went to a single prenatal appointment. I took a single long walk along the canal near our house. I did not return 6 voicemails from my father. The voicemails followed a pattern Crawford had warned me about. The first 2 were soft. Sweetheart, we love you. We just want to talk. The next 2 were practical. Maisie, we are family. The girl is just stressed. The car is a misunderstanding. The last 2 were threats. The 4th voicemail said, in my father's most controlled cross-examination voice, Maisie, if this goes to anyone outside the family, you will regret it. I forwarded all 6 to Crawford within the hour they arrived. I did not delete them. I did not listen to them again. My father had used that voice with juries. He had never used it on his daughter. He picked the wrong week to start. Late on Friday, May 22nd, Crawford called me. He said, brunch tomorrow. Phoenix Society Bulletin Engagement Column, Camelback Country Club, 11 a.m. Your mother is on the guest list. So is the entire CC board. He paused. We have decided to execute the warrants there. I sat at my kitchen table for a long minute after the call. I did not call my mother. I did not warn anyone. I sent her exactly 1 text message at 11:52 p.m. Don't touch the BMW. My mother read the message at 11:52. She did not answer. She did not need to. She would understand by lunch tomorrow. The Camelback Country Club Spring Engagement Brunch is the kind of event the Phoenix Society Bulletin sends a writer and a photographer to cover every May. 60 guests, the board chair, the board chair's wife, 3 former club presidents, 2 columnists, a photographer named Reggie who had been photographing engagements at that club since I was in middle school. The brunch began at 11. My father walked in at 10:57, in the suit he had been disbarred in 4 years earlier. The board chair, a man named Whitfield Whit Calloway, met him at the entrance with a handshake that was too polite to be warm. It is wonderful to be home, Whit, my father said. Gerald, Whit said, and let go of his hand. My father had spent 4 years buying his way back into that room. He had 18 minutes left in it. At 11:08, I walked through the front doors of Camelback Country Club with Owen on my right, Crawford's 2 plainclothes investigators on my left, and my hand on the front of my belly. I was 35 weeks pregnant. I was wearing a deep navy blue dress that fell to my ankles, not ivory, not blush, navy. A color no one in my family had worn since my grandfather's funeral. My father saw me from across the room. The blood went out of his face the way blood goes out of the face of a man who has spent 30 years rehearsing a closing argument and has just realized the jury is not in the room. I heard him say under his breath to my mother, she was not supposed to come. My father had told the room I was indisposed. The room was about to find out who had indisposed me. Reggie the photographer walked over to the head table where Sloan and Tanner were seated. He raised his camera, did a polite half-bow toward Sloan, and asked whether the bride-to-be would like to include her future sister-in-law in the engagement portrait. I shook my head once. No, thank you, I said. Today is for evidence, not photographs. Reggie blinked. He did not lower the camera. He took the photograph anyway. He kept the camera up after. He photographed every second of what happened next. At 11:14, the front doors of the ballroom opened. Crawford walked in. Behind him came one Arizona Attorney General investigator in a charcoal suit. Behind them came two uniformed Scottsdale police officers. The room did not understand at first. Country clubs do not see uniformed officers in their ballrooms during brunch. The forks paused in midair. A wine glass clinked against a plate. A woman in a yellow blazer at the third table said audibly, "Oh." Crawford crossed the floor at a normal walking pace. He did not raise his voice. He did not flash a badge. He stopped beside Tanner and Sloane's table. He addressed them by name. "Mr. Vandermeer, Ms. Pritchard. I am Special Agent Crawford with the Arizona Attorney General's office. We are going to need you to step outside to answer some questions." Sloane laughed. The laugh was the small, bright laugh of a woman who had spent 26 years discovering that authority was something other people had to obey. She started to say something. She did not finish it. She saw the second officer's badge clipped at his belt. Tanner stood up too quickly. He bumped the table. A glass tipped. Wine spread across the linen. He said, I'm sorry. What is this about?" "Outside," Crawford said. They walked outside thinking they were being asked. They were not. The brunch room has a long wall of floor-to-ceiling windows that face the front foyer. Every guest in the ballroom watched the next 40 seconds through that wall of glass. Crawford turned them at the foot of the foyer staircase. He read them their rights in the steady professional voice that I had heard him use on the phone 2 weeks earlier. He cuffed Sloane first. He cuffed Tanner second. When the cuffs went onto Sloane's wrists, the engagement ring slipped on her finger. She must have had it sized loose. The diamond, 2 4/10 of a carat, fell off her hand. It hit the marble floor of the foyer. It bounced once. It rolled along a seam in the tile until it came to a stop against the brass leg of an umbrella stand. The second uniformed officer bent down, picked the ring up between 2 gloved fingers, and dropped it into a clear evidence bag. My brother's fiancée had spent 8 months planning a wedding. She had 8 seconds left planning anything. My father had been watching from the doorway of the ballroom. He stepped forward now into the foyer. He raised both hands the way a man raises hands when he is asking a jury to be reasonable. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. "Officers, agent, there has been a misunderstanding." Crawford turned to him. He placed his hand on my father's shoulder. The contact was not aggressive, it was procedural. "Mr. Vandermeer," Crawford said, "you are also being detained on charges of aggravated assault on a pregnant victim under Arizona Revised Statutes 13-1204. We will discuss the conspiracy charges at the station." My father's mouth opened. It did not close again until the second officer took his other arm. He had spent 30 years writing demand letters for other people's pain. He had never seen a statute pointed back at him. My mother stood at the head table where she had been seated. Her hand was over her mouth. The board chair, Whit Calloway, walked across the ballroom toward her. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The room had already stopped pretending it was a brunch. "Marlene," he said, when he reached her table, "your guest pass and your sister's standing are under review, effective immediately. I would like you to leave the property within the hour." My mother set her champagne flute down on the linen. She did not pick it up again. My mother had been a guest at that club for 30 years. The clock had started ticking on the last 60 minutes. She walked the length of the room toward the front door. She walked past my chair. She reached out and grabbed my hand with the soft hand of a woman who had not held mine since 2019. "How could you do this?" she whispered. I looked at my mother. I did not pull my hand away. I let her hold it for one more second. I said 3 sentences. "You shoved your daughter. You stole your granddaughter's car. You told 80 people I was the cold one. I am not the cold one." Her hand slid off mine. Slowly. The way a hand lets go of a railing. My mother walked out of the country club at 12:03. I walked out at 12:05. Owen was waiting in the BMW at the curb. The cameras kept rolling. The Arizona Attorney General's office filed charges on Monday, May 25th. State of Arizona versus Vandermeer Tanner. Insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud. 12 counts. State of Arizona versus Pritchard Sloan. Insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, false swearing, identity-related fraud. 16 counts. State of Arizona versus Vandermeer. Gerald W. aggravated assault on a pregnant victim. ARS 13-1204. Conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. Practicing law without a license. Solicitation of fraudulent claims through a disbarred member of the bar. The United States Attorney's Office for the District of Arizona filed federal wire fraud charges on Tuesday under 18 U.S. Code Section 1343, anchored on the Austin claim. Sloan took the plea offer first. She flipped on Tuesday afternoon. She gave the federal prosecutors my father, my brother, Dr. Ridgway, the billing manager at Camelview Medical, and 2 other staged accident drivers I had never met. The plea agreement was filed under seal until the trial dates were set. By Wednesday morning, the Arizona Board of Chiropractic Examiners had summarily suspended Dr. Ridgway's license pending a full revocation hearing. By Thursday morning, Hadley Conroe sent me a single text message. All 14 denied. Recovery filed at $2.1 million. Sloan took the plea. You don't need to come in. Stay home with the baby. My family had spent 4 years rebuilding the picture. It took 2 weekends to take it down. The BMW sat in the driveway of our house in Paradise Valley. The dash cam ran every 6 seconds, the way it had always run. The cloud kept the backup. I did not drive much in those last days of May. I had hit 36 weeks. Owen drove me to my doctor's appointments. He drove me to the grocery store. One afternoon, on the way back from the OB office, I sat in the passenger seat with my hand on my belly and looked at the master key fob in the cup holder. The MV engraving caught the desert light. That fob saved more than a car, Owen said. My father had held that fob over the heads of 80 people. He was not going to hold anything for a long time. My mother closed the house in Paradise Valley at the end of May. She moved to Tucson to live with her older sister in a small adobe house on a quiet street I had visited once as a child. She wrote me a letter. 2 pages. Handwritten. She apologized for the gravy, for the Thanksgivings, for the silver pin, for the years she had spent telling people I was the cold one. She wrote, "Near the end, I should have stood up for you. I will spend my last years understanding why I did not." I read the letter halfway through. I folded it. I put it in a small paper box on a shelf in my closet. I labeled the box, in pencil, pending. I did not open the box again that month. My mother had finally written the truth. I had finally stopped needing to read it. On a quiet Tuesday evening in the last week of May, Owen finished assembling the crib in the nursery. He stood up, wiped his hands on a towel, and looked at me where I was leaning in the doorway with one hand on my belly and one hand on the doorframe. "Have you decided what you'll tell her about them someday?" he asked. The nursery was painted the color of a desert sky just before sunrise. The crib was white maple. There was a single photograph framed on the dresser. It was a picture of me and Owen, taken at Pizzeria Bianco the night of our courthouse wedding. There were no other photographs in the room. I thought about my father's voice in the hallway at 7:48 on the night of the engagement party. Ridgway said the clinic confirmed. I thought about my mother's hand on my shoulder when she told me not to make it bigger than it was. I thought about Sloane's laugh and Tanner's clap on her shoulder. I thought about the strip of paper from the fetal monitor that had run for 1 full minute. I looked at my husband. I put my hand under the curve of my belly. "I don't have a father," I said. "I have a case number. She'll have a mother who never confused the two." Owen did not answer. He did not need to. The desert outside the window was turning the color of a bruise that was beginning to fade. The crib was made. I don't have a father. I have a case number. And by the time Ren is old enough to ask, the case number will be all that's left of them.